48-hour art check, round 30.
Yes.
48-hour art check! All right. I feel like we should do something. We should have thought this through. I shouldn't have been out of town for 2 weeks because it's round 30. That's like a big moment, I feel like.
You know what? I think it's such a big moment that you should go adopt a kid. Like, hey. I just think that's totally what you should do.
That is a great way to celebrate.
Yeah, as a celebration. That new intro thing is really cool. That's neat that you figured that out. This is kind of a system that we're using to make these things, and it looks great. Looks awesome.
Thanks. Because I feel like not that everybody is going to be on the chat right as we start, but those that watch these videos later, there will be a nice 60-second intro that kind of explains like the steps and the stages and why we're doing this and all that stuff. And now it'll be like part of each video. Also, it's nice to give people kind of like a time to like get in, settle in, and instead of like, sometimes I feel like we make an announcement that we're going live and then people come in, but we've already been talking for like 5 minutes or whatever.
Yeah.
So anyway, but yeah, it's pretty cool. And I can talk about that more because that was part of like what I did, but I can talk about that more during my thing. But yeah, there was a big update and it was kind of cool. There's some new functionality that I'm playing with, so we'll see what else I can figure out here.
Yeah, I'm still just kind of absorbing the fact that you're back in your studio and kind of at home and stuff. It's kind of neat.
Here I am.
To be back. And we got the split screen set up again, so things are good. So all right, should we dip into it then?
Yeah, let's jump in. Do you want to start this time?
Sure.
Okay, so I also want to introduce our new timer.
Ooh,
new and easier to read, and when I push the button, it animates on. So I can it's a lot better and quicker responsive. So
that's amazing. Wow, I feel like we got all these goodies. That's really cool. I like the font. Yeah. All right, so let's get into plans. I guess that I accomplished pretty much what I set out to do. I'd say, to be honest and kind of fair, I probably am about a day behind where I wanted to be.
Okay.
But I've mapped out the next page of quarterly stories. The idea is going to be this overhead shot of a playground with these different kids doing an archaeological dig in the playground, and then the main character, is going to be moving throughout the it's like a fake perspective shot of the playground where he's going to be moving and interacting with all the kids like a supervisor on that page, and it's inspired by like Frank King. I think I've mentioned that on this show before, but basically like Frank King used to do these overhead shots of like a city street where the characters would move throughout the same shot and time would pass, but you're looking at a single image.
Yeah. With
time kind of passing. And so I'm kind of doing this as a little bit of an homage, but without the intriguing like paneling that he would mix into it as well. I'm just going to do it as a single shot.
Cool.
So I'm stoked about that. That being said, this is going to take a lot longer to kind of pencil, but I also managed to do the rough pencils and the rough panel and type for it, so I'm ready to go. But to be honest, where I would have liked to be today is to have started like roughing panel 1. In this case, since it's not panels, at least get some of the characters drawn and start working on some of that background element and stuff. But to be honest, I feel like I kind of lost a day.
Yeah.
Which is kind of like not something I want to make a habit of, but it was just based on exhaustion, which is, I don't know. We'll get into that with struggles and stuff like that, but I'm definitely hoping to kind of do better with that this next.
That's good, and I think it's important to recognize when you didn't meet your expectations, but not so much that you're beating yourself up, and because that can become its own like weird little cycle where you're like, oh, I didn't do this, and then it kind of spirals out of control and you get less and less and less productive. But like a healthy like look at it and say, yeah, I think I could do better, is good. Yeah. But also like a day off every once in a while is fine. I don't know. I mean, you and I do that differently, but
I try not to. Yeah. But I agree. I mean, I think it can't hurt. But we'll definitely have to get into that with struggles and stuff.
Yeah.
It's definitely something I want to do better on. And but you're right. Like it's a delicate balance between having a healthy attitude towards it and then also being kind of the type of personality that I am, which is like a person who really likes to get done, especially what I said I'm going to get done or what I'm intending to get done. It is a juggle between that, and obviously you don't want to go down that like shame spiral or whatever, or start using that as a resistance of its own, where it's like, well, I could do this tomorrow, but I'm not going to do that because I already missed like this time, so on. So what'd you get done? I mean, obviously new titles. That's pretty exciting.
Yeah. So the biggest accomplishment I had wasn't necessarily an art accomplishment, but it was that I got home, which I will talk about during struggles because it was a challenge. But during that, I don't even know what today is, Saturday, on Wednesday when we met last, I had set the goal to talk with my daughter about some of the stories she's writing. She's got a list of about 9 different story ideas that she likes. And so I talked about Invisible Ink, Brian McDonald. He's got a storytelling form that I think is like super powerful because of its simplicity, and it is nice. It is every day until one day, and because of that, and because of that, and because of that, and then every day after that. So you talk about like stasis, normal, the inciting incident that disrupts normal, that launches into the character arc, and then because of a chain of events, the new normal becomes whatever. And I feel like for kids it's great for adults, but for kids it's super easy to understand. Like this is normal every day. You need to like develop that and talk about that, and then an inciting incident, something happens to make them change normal or want to change normal, and then a series of events follow, and then at the end of those series of events they should be different and there should be a new normal. And so we talked about that, and I thought that was good. And then when I got home, there was an update. I have 10 seconds. There was an update to the Elgato, which is this thing, and they updated the drivers, and now each one of these buttons can do macros instead of just a single action. They can do a series of actions, including delays, keystrokes, opening and closing apps, changing scenes. And so I played with that, and that's why we have all new titles, and that's why we have kind of this whole intro animation thing that kind of goes through and explains stuff. And so I thought it might be kind of fun to like have all that. And so I built that, and I built a new timer, and so just some housekeeping, because I think I've said a number of times I hate the timer that I made. It just doesn't fit with the theme of everything else. It wasn't even like in the color scheme that we have, and so it's kind of like weird. It's kind of always just bugged me. So
I think that's great. So I think that exceeds your goal, because I think last time we talked, we were saying that we wanted, I think your goal was just let's get you guys home, and that's a pretty massive trip with a newborn and stuff. So that's I'm impressed you got home, and I'm impressed you got some work done.
Right.
So yeah, cool. So should we dip into struggles then?
Yeah. So what kind of struggles did you have?
All right. So for me, the main one is we're in rush season at my work, so like pretty much every day for the last week I've had to do overtime. And then aside from that, like on top of overtime, I'm also training an employee as well during a rush season, which is hard to do. It's well worth it, but it's just exhausting.
Mm-hmm.
And just kind of like this week, because of the extent of our rush season, this week was just one of those weeks where by the time like Friday came around, I was just burnt out. And so it's one of those things I have to be really cautious with, is like avoiding burnout. But just, yeah, just like fighting that whole, and I'm sure we'll get into this more with like with your struggles, because you have much much more, I think, time consuming struggles. But for me, like that's one of the biggest battles that I'm fighting all the time, which is just I really want to get this big book project done, and life just gets really exhausting, and kind of that extra time you're spending on personal projects actually does start to add up and,
right.
and start to kind of. So it's weird because on one hand, personal projects are something I want to do. It's not like it's this terrible sacrifice on my end. It's something I really want to do. It's just one of those things of finding that balance between the personal projects and like what I do professionally right now, and just trying to kind of avoid days like Friday. I checked in with you and you were like kind of okay with going, but it sounded like you weren't going to be home till like late, and right. I was just thinking, trying to put myself in your shoes. I'm like, dude, we shouldn't do that. That's crazy. But I also was like personally really exhausted at that point too, and I was like, I don't really know. Like, I kind of need a day. So so that's kind of my struggle to be. That was what I was struggling with. Honestly, I feel better today, and I got right back at it. But it's just, trying to avoid that need for that time. I don't know. So what about you?
So mine was just getting home. I had rented a car while I was down there in Arizona, and I said, hey, let's look at flights. And so to fly the 3 of us down there was $350. To fly the 4 of us back, which, the infant didn't count as an extra person. So basically to buy 3 tickets to come back, same airline, same everything, was like $850. And so I was like, well, that's stupid. And so then I called the rental car company and I said, hey, what if I, instead of dropping this off in Arizona, what if I drop this off in Idaho? And they said that would be about $650 extra. And so then I was like, all right. So then my dad, because my niece was born within 15 minutes of my son, and my sister lives in Utah, and so my mom was already there. My dad was coming up. So I called my dad, and I said, what if we met you in Las Vegas and drove with you to Salt Lake? And he said, that's great. Let's do it. And so then I called the rental car company back, and I said, all right, so what if I drop this off in Las Vegas? And they're like, yeah, that'd be great. That'd be an extra $250. And I said, well, that's stupid. And so I said, well, no. They said that'd be an extra $400. And I said, well, that seems ridiculous. Do I have any other options? And they said, no. And I said, okay, what if I turn this car in and rent a different car and take that car to Las Vegas? And they said, that would be $200. And I said, well, that seems like another option. And so then I started thinking about it, and I said, this is stupid. And so I just was like, what if I rented a car from anybody rather than from the people I already rented it from? And so, long story short, I was able to get a car for $62 to drop off in Vegas. So I ended up saving myself $790. But it was really, really frustrating. And so it took, and for some reason in Mesa and Gilbert, everything takes 20 minutes. It could be 2 miles down the road, it's going to take 20 minutes. It could be 60 miles down the road, somehow it's still going to take 20 minutes. I don't understand the physics of how Gilbert, Arizona works. But, like, I had to go to one place to drop this car off, and then go to another place, or to pick the car up and then go to another place to drop that car off and then go to another place to do this other thing. And then, so it took us like 2 hours just to leave Gilbert. And then, I know I'm going way over time, and then I have an 8-year-old and a 5-day-old that I'm driving through sweltering heat. I don't know, like 900 miles or something. I can't remember what it was, but it's like we got into Utah at like 2 a.m, and then we still had another, like, normally a 4-hour drive that takes 6 hours when you have to stop every 90 minutes to feed, diaper change, and whatever. So I got home. I made it. It only took me 2 days, and I saved myself almost $800, and that's why I didn't get a lot done.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's no small feat, man. I mean, just doing a trip with a kid alone is tough, but a trip with a kid that's 5 days old, and then another kid that's young as well, and you're just dealing with, I mean, not 5 days old, but still substantially, like, kids don't like sitting still.
Nope.
In a car for hours, just like adults don't. They just have a worse filter than adults. And so that's...
It was 115 degrees in Vegas, and the car wasn't working. It was on the verge of breaking down. So I got into my dad's car, which has like 250,000 miles on it, and we are driving. The car won't idle, and we're in bumper to bumper traffic for like an hour. We went about 5 miles in about an hour, and the entire time we were like, if we break down, like, it could be life threatening, you know, like, because if the car stops, I can't keep this kid, you know, in the heat. So we started thinking of, like, what do you do if you break down in that situation? Find a car that looks like it has air conditioning, and they're not going to, you know, mug you and steal your family, and knock on their door and say, hey, this kid's going to die if he doesn't have air conditioning. Can he sit in your car? So we're coming up with all these situations. Luckily, we didn't break down. That was nice. So.
Oh man, that does complicate things though. When you're in a car where it's not even working.
Right.
Oh my gosh.
So yeah,
I'm glad you guys got back safe. Is it a pretty big relief to be back, you know, in your space?
Yeah, I have my own studio background again. I'm not, like, you know, in my uncle's living room asking them to be quiet for 20 minutes while I do this. Yeah, it's good. It's good. So,
I love it. Because I know for myself, like, even without any kind of complication to it, it's just I'm not a big, like, travel person. Like, I enjoy travel when I do it, but I don't seek it out. And so for me, if I'm, like, gone for like a week from my house, I just feel weird, and it's mainly because of the art thing. Because I'm like, I want to be working on my comics all the time, and I'm like, I can't work on my comics. Where are my comics? Like, it's so I think just having your own space and stuff, especially being an artist and stuff, I think we're kind of the type of people we spend a lot of time just alone at an art table, like maybe listening to audiobooks. And so I'm glad you're back in your space and are able to kind of get going. How's sleeping going? Is that a struggle right now?
Yeah, a little bit. You know, I mean, I haven't had to go back to work yet, and so I can sleep in a lot in the morning. So my wife and I are trading off. I'll take till 2 or 3 in the morning, and so they just sleep a lot, and they only cry when they need something. So, you know, I've just got him in a little bassinet in my studio, and then I'll just, at like 2 or 3 in the morning, I go upstairs, and then I go to bed, and my wife gets up. And so then I sleep in till 11. So once I have to go back to work, though, that's gonna change. But yeah. So. Yeah,
that will be a struggle, man.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Well, let's get into plans. So.
Yeah. So what are your plans? What are your plans before Monday, or before we meet again on Monday?
I really want to have, let's see, Monday. I want to have like a good chunk of the rough pencils done for it.
Mm-hmm.
I definitely need to at least work out the space, like how it's going to work with the playground, and kind of work out like what angle that's going to be. Am I going to go full isometric with it, and map that out? So my goal would be to like get at least like a third through the rough pencils. If I can get further, great. But it's going to be a complicated page.
Yeah.
And so and like even in the thumbnail, I'm not really including the amount of kids or whatever that I kind of envision being on the page. So it's going to be interesting. It's going to be a bit of a beast to tackle, but yeah, I definitely want to be at least a third through, if not through. Ideally, I'd like to be through the rough pencils, but I'd say by like Monday night, even if it's after we do our art check, I need to have a good chunk of that rough pencils done for that page.
Cool.
Yeah, but the rough pencils are going to be really elemental on this, or key, or functional, or I'm using the wrong words. But they're going to be like really important because it's a structural page, and so
right.
it really working out the structures before really polishing it up is going to be important. So we'll see, but that's the plan.
And do you do that
so far?
Do you do that digitally, or do you do that on paper?
For roughs. This style, yeah, for this style I do it digitally.
Yeah, that makes sense, and that'll make it a little bit easier because then at least you can, you know, polygonal lasso tool, select, resize, move a little bit while you're trying to figure all that out. Because those pages, those can be super, I mean, just crowd scenes are just hard. They're just super complicated.
Yeah, and that's the great thing. I can focus on just getting the characters right. Like what the key thing on this is going to be getting the angle and the perspective and stuff right. And then after that, you know, because it's digitally drawn, I can draw the characters really big and shrink them down and place them, and you know, free transform them and stuff, and whatever we needed. So it's really just going to be getting that foundational part down. But yeah, it's interesting how, like, what, you know, we'll have to get into that at some point. But it's interesting to me how, like, for me naturally, I switch styles of working all the time depending on the final style of art that I want.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty flexible with that. And I didn't actually do that in past comics, but I've kind of designed this comic to have that included in it, where I can kind of switch and change things up. So, but I tend to think, like, you know, especially newer artists and stuff, I think might be stuck on this idea of like, well, this is the proper way to do something.
Yeah.
And I think, at least, especially students and stuff, it's always refreshing to have students that will tackle things from different perspectives, because different jobs and different styles require different things, you know?
Right.
And I think that shows with like your work as well, where it's like when you're doing like sticker stint, you approach it from a different angle than when you're doing your kid's book. And it's because the final product's a different thing.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, and if it's supposed to feel different, then it's got to feel different to produce it, I feel like. I'll even change, and I don't think this is uncommon, the music that I listen to or the books that I'm listening to while I'm creating specific things. If especially if I'm trying to describe something more nonlinear, like an emotion, rather than a direct, clear message, I will change the mood of the room in addition to the style of working. So, I mean, sometimes I'll be standing up, sometimes I'll be sitting down, sometimes I'm on my iPad, sometimes I'm on my Cintiq, sometimes I'll go out into the woods, sometimes I'm at my table, and each one of those changes will affect the final piece and the mood of it. And I think it's an important thing for people to kind of discover what works for you and what will change your art, so that you can use that as a tool rather than like be like, I don't know why this one's different. It's like, well, because you were in a different environment, or you were listening to punk rather than classical or whatever, you know. So yeah.
No, it makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
Your plans? What are you thinking?
So what I'm going to do is I am going to get my pitch ready for going after literary agents. I've written my book. Now I'm going to letter it and prepare like a final PDF pitch with the intention of sending that off by the end of next week. And so I am between now and Monday. I won't be able to get a ton done, but I would like to see. I'm going to nail down like a lettering style. So that's going to be the biggest thing. Which doesn't seem. It might look like I only get like a page or two done, but it's because I'm choosing typography. I'm choosing mood with the type, and I'll be building a system of rules. And there's things like in comics, there are more hard and fast rules that I understand. You know, as far as like pacing and dialogue, and you can bold things if you want that to be the emphasis of the sentence, and you can have like two balloons merged together, but that separation of those will give you a little bit of an audible pause as you read it. I'm going to play with some of those things, except I don't have a lot of the classical tools that you have in comics because I don't have word balloons. And so, but I'm still going to play with like placement and spacing and create spacing as time, because I have kind of a very specific cadence that I want this to feel like when you read it. And so I want to nail down like kind of my typography structure and the lettering rules that I'm going to go for, and the style of the font, paragraph styles, and that type of thing. So I'll probably finish a page or two before Monday. That's my main plan. Also, though, I have to get all of the grading done that I missed while I was away on Monday and attend graduation since I'm back in town. And so Monday is going to be a day of like 8 a.m. until like 11:30 p.m. straight.
Oh, yeah.
So I don't have a ton that I'll be able to do. So,
yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
That sounds reasonable. If you're looking at pacing, just a tip, and maybe you're probably already aware of it, but if anybody out there is interested in like pacing and typography for children's books, there's this really brilliant kids book called The Book with No Pictures.
Yeah, that book is amazing.
It's literally just all type, but it's the tempo and the way that it's written. It kind of dictates the way and the style that you're going to read it in. Yeah. And it does it so effectively that my wife's read it to my son, and she reads it the same exact way I do.
Yeah.
And if I gave it to Cory, he'd read it to his kids the same way, because the author it's really well paced, and it's a great book, but it's good for like just the power of words in a book. When a kid's book.
It's a phenomenal book. I mean, it uses size ratios and proximity and spacing and even color and typeface changes. It is amazing to listen to different people read it, because the speed changes and the pauses and even sometimes the voice inflection are all exceptionally similar from reader to reader, but it's all just words. Whereas you pick up a novel, you're not going to get that.
Yeah,
so
totally.
That's a great example. Yeah, I like that book.
And then the only other thing I was going to mention is just the fact that you were talking about going through a graduation. So I've had to do a few of those because I used to teach college. And I remember the first one being so funny for me as a person who hadn't taught and had kind of observed the whole procession. So I always assumed like the professors have it down. So like you'd go up to your teacher when you're going through like walking or whatever, and you're like, which side does my thing go on the hat and stuff? Nobody, like, I swear we were walking out to the procession, and it's a bunch of people. Some of these teachers have taught for like 40 years, and they're like, which side does this thing go on? Like, how am I supposed to put my arm in this weird like thing that I never wear? Like, you know, and a lot of them are those wacky like master's robes, and so you've got these like weird sleeves, and you're like, do I put my arm through like this thing? Like, what's this weird? What do I do? I was just fascinated by the fact that professors are pretty much going through the same thing the kids are on the procession day, because they have nobody knows the pomp and circumstance. I guess maybe after a while, maybe it's, do you have it down pat now? I don't know.
Let's see.
It only happens like once a year.
No, for us it happens because we're in a 3-track system. So we have we have a graduation at the end of each semester because people are staggered to better use campus. So I have done, this will be my 13th maybe graduation as a professor. So that makes it seem like I've been teaching for a long time, but it's just, if you do 3 times a year, it adds up.
Yeah.
Yeah, so here's the trick. You go to the first one, and then there's a big whatever, and then there's this little like kind of mix and mingle in between before the littler one for the college. So you have the university-wide, and there they will have cups of water and like fruit platters and brownies and whatever, so that you can like, because you're going for like 4 hours, and so and it's during dinner time. So the trick is drink the water and then drink another water and then fill those cups with food, and the master's robes are like the perfect thing. And I thought I was super inventive and a little silly until I realized most of the professors I know hide things in their sleeves, because you can be sitting there all whatever, and then you just tuck your hand down and grab a grape. And no one really notices. And so I know people that have like full cans of soda, and just the way that gravity works, like the soda doesn't spill because it's always pointed down. Anyway, those just the next time you see a professor after the little food thing, you know, chances are 20% of them have like candy or food or soda or something in their wizard sleeves.
They've hidden snacks in their wizard sleeves, which are fun to wear, man. Those wizard sleeves are fun to wear. It's just, you know, it's awkward, but then usually by the end of the whole thing, I'm like, I want wizard sleeves all the time. that shows the use of them.
My buddy actually took his to a tailor and had them specially altered, so it still looks exactly the same, but he's got like hidden zipper pockets and pouches anyway. His robes are incredible. You can't tell from the outside, but he's got a very functional system that he
like an air conditioning unit,
right?
So that's amazing. Well, cool. So I think this is good. I'm stoked you're back. I'm stoked that things are kind of back on track, and I think that's a pretty reasonable goal for Monday. So hopefully
soon we need to have a long one. So we should plan. We should plan a long one, because I know I do, and you have mentioned that you do as well. Need kind of a big overarching, big picture, longer than 2 days ahead conversation. And so I don't know if the format will change or whatever, but sometime next week, I think one of those days we should plan on maybe going for an hour or something and plotting out what the next 6 months look like or something. I don't know, but I know.
I think so.
Yeah, I mean, I'm at a spot where I kind of need to do that. So.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. We had this guy Vincent DePorter, who's a really brilliant cartoonist, on Artcasters a couple days ago, and he was talking about like European comics, and it just got me even thinking about the fact that I hadn't even considered approaching European publishers.
Yeah.
For my comic when I'm done, and there's some things about approaching publishers and approaching writing reps and stuff like that are kind of like swimming around, but I haven't really fully figured out or committed to a plan with that. And it is getting to that point where, you know, I'm like technically, like for my book, I think I'm on page 75. Okay. And so, you know, I'm getting a little closer to the point where I'm going to start having to think about that finished stuff. Yeah. And so, yeah, that would be really useful. Yeah. Okay. Definitely. We'll do that.
Yeah. So think about what day might work, and I'll be pretty open any day that isn't Monday. So
yeah, Monday is going to be your killer day.
yeah.
Let's think. I know my band actually has a gig on Saturday, which is kind of exciting.
Cool.
But other than, I think, yeah, I'll get back to you. We'll figure out a day.
Okay, sounds good. Okay, so if you want to check out Josh's stuff, I feel like there should be a better word than stuff. Work makes it seem whatever. Art, creations, whatever adjective or noun you want to add in there.
Check out our junk.
Look at my junk. That turned weird. I didn't expect that. Okay, so if you want to check out Josh's artwork that he draws, to be very specific, including his comics and other things, go to quarterlystories.com. If you are on a mobile device and you like reading comics, then go look for Quarterly Stories on Tapas. If you want to check out my stuff, you can see that at corykerr.com. And my site will be updated soonish. I'm also working on some stuff. I have one in the can, and I've got a few others lined up. So pay attention to both Josh's YouTube channel, which is in the description of this video, and my YouTube channel, because I will be having a bunch of artists on as I do interviews. I'm going to try to hit one a week up until I exhibit in Salt Lake. So we'll see how that goes. And then special thanks to No Saboteurs for the actual intro music instead of the Josh and Cory version of the intro music. And you can check out their stuff at facebook.com/No Saboteurs. Okay, we'll see you guys all on Monday. Have a great weekend.